Welcome to Rewatch-and-Rank. On this channel, we rewatch older TV shows, provide a summary and opinion on the episode before ranking each episode against each other. Today's episode is Grey's Anatomy Season 2, Episode 5, Bring the Pain. The episode in a nutshell is just a brief reminder of exactly what happens within this episode. So we'll start with a quick summary of the plots regarding the medical cases first, and then move into the actual drama aspect of the episode. So first, we have Christina dealing with a patient who is allergic to every pain medication that is used in the hospitals, and whose previous doctor or regular family practitioner um, di prescribed adult content videos as pain medication as it releases endorphins and can help to ease the pain, which of course everyone doesn't really believe when they first see it. However, after there is a power outage in this episode, he's no longer able to consume that content, and his medical vitals, I don't know what the word would be, statistics, whatever the case may be, actually show that he actually ends up in a struggle, in pain, which shocks Christina, who comes in to check on him after being kind of rude about it previously, and knowing that it actually helps with the pain, she takes on the role of somewhat of an audiobook to try to help him with his pain in a very embarrassing scene or two. And then moving on from that, we have Izzy, who is dealing with a woman who on the same day every single year for the past 7 years has had what looks like a heart attack where her heart actually stops. But when they run the test, there isn't actually any damage to the heart or anything like that, which would provide a medical reason. However, she does learn that this woman who is married to another man had a neighbor named Ted who died suddenly 7 years previously. And once the husband is not around, Izzy goes in and basically lets her know that on the day that Ted died, her body floods with adrenaline enough to actually stop her heart, which is why it appears that she has a heart attack every day and that she is grieving Ted. And the wife admits, because her husband isn't there, that for 27 years she loved the man next door and he loved her apparently, and they were soulmates. Uh, and that is and then he just suddenly died, and that is what causes it. We'll talk more on that later. Then we have Meredith's patient, well, Meredith and Derek's patient, who needs a surgery in order to be able to walk because she has an aggressive tumor in her spine. But when her parents arrive, her dad basically says, "This isn't happening today. It can't happen today. We got to take her home." And basically, because the patient is an adult, they do have to follow her wishes to go home. And at first, they want to call a social worker to try to convince her otherwise, but then after speaking with her more, Meredith realizes that it has to do with their religious beliefs and that they believe that she is missing a soul, and until that soul is recovered, she cannot have surgery or she will be guaranteed death. And so Meredith brings this to Derek, who then goes to the father, who basically says, "We will fly in a or basically helicopter in the shaman as long as we can do this surgery today, because otherwise she won't be able to walk." And the father agrees, and they do the ritual, and then we see them in the operating room. We don't see the outcome, but we would assume it's good, otherwise they probably would have tried to pull on our heartstrings. So we assume a good outcome. And then the final case for the episode was George and Alex, who basically a cop is shot and they have to get him to the operating room. However, it just so happens that when the power goes out, They are in the elevator and the elevator gets stuck. As they are in the elevator, the doors are able to be pried open a small amount to allow like Burke and Bailey and some other doctors who want to observe to hear what's going on and kind of see what's going on in the elevator. And when the patient starts to go south, Burke initially wants to talk Alex through the surgery. However, Alex freezes up and it ends up being George who takes over and performs the surgery himself under Burke's instruction. And then they are able to get the fire people in to open the elevator so that they can get the patient to an actual OR to finish the surgery. They just do as much as they can to stabilize the patient in the elevator. So those are all the patients. And then for the relationships, Burke wants an answer from Christina on whether or not she wants to be a couple. And at the end of the episode, she gives him the answer that she does, and they become a couple. Izzy and Alex, their date started in the previous episode. It ended in this one, and Alex doesn't. Izzy thinks the date went bad. Alex tells her he's had a great time. She then softens, but then he walks away, kind of ignoring her. She then goes in to complain to George about it, and by the end of the episode, they have not resolved this issue, so we are assuming they are on the downward trend. We then have we learn that Bailey is married and has been for 10 years, and it's actually her anniversary that day, which is nice. And then finally, we have the Meredith Derek Addison drama. And it's focused more so on Meredith in this episode. Basically, Meredith at first says, "You didn't sign the papers. We're completely done. I'm out of the relationship." But then she ends up working with Derek, and then she kind of takes back her words and says, "You know what? I lied. I'm actually not only in this relationship, but I am incredibly in love with you and want you to pick me. And if you decide to sign the papers, you can come to like Joe's bar that night with the signed papers and we'll pick up where we left off, essentially." Derek, of course, has been struggling. He tells Meredith that the reason he's hesitating on signing the divorce papers is that it was 11 years where Addison was his family, and it's signing away his family that's, 11 Thanksgivings and 11 Christmases, 11 birthdays, so on and so forth, and that he's allowed to have some hesitation on making such a big decision. And then we get to the end of the episode where he's sitting in the waiting room, speaks briefly to Bailey, but hasn't signed the papers yet, hasn't gone to the bar yet. And then we see Addison walk up, and then she asks him whether or not he's going to sign the papers. And that is where we get our cliffhanger because we don't get to see him answer in this episode. So now that we've been reminded about what happens in the episode, it's time to rank the episode. A reminder, we rank on two lists, our mostly objective ranking list, and then our personal ranking list. So that now brings us to our mostly objective rank values, and we will start, of course, with the impactful, memorable, moment line, etc. And not every memorable or iconic or impactful line is necessarily the best line ever, but I have seen this line kind of parodied so often that it is very memorable. But obviously, since people are using it to parody it, not necessarily the best one. So basically, when Meredith is giving Derek his ultimatum to meet her at the bar, the iconic, "So pick me, choose me, love me" line plays. And honestly, I don't personally see much wrong with the line. I actually, if it wasn't parodied so much outside of the show, probably wouldn't have considered it to be impactful or memorable. But it's just like parodied so often everywhere in other shows, in memes, in just conversations when people are talking about various types of women and such, which is where I most recently heard it in like a podcast where someone brought up the line. But the point of the matter is, It's obviously been impactful as it has spread from the show into other medias, and that is why it was worth the 3 points for being a impactful, memorable moment line, etc. We then get our multi-season main character development, which is where we learn that Bailey has apparently not only been married, but been so for 10 whole years. Which previously we hadn't learned much about Bailey's personal life, so this is pretty interesting development, and that is worth 4 points. We then have our multi-season main character growth. As we recall, if we go all the way back to season 1, episode 1, George was called on to do the first surgery among the interns, and he choked, and he got the nickname 007, which is License to Kill, is what it stands for. And then we have seen him doing medical stuff since then, but not really seen him doing like surgery since then, and especially and most definitely not on his own. So the fact that he was able to this time not only do the surgery without choking, do it on his own, but also succeed at it shows that George has come a long way since season 1, episode 1. Still not my favorite character. Just gonna say that and put it out there. But he has grown. And that is worth another 4 points. We then get our main relationship development, and this, of course, is when Christina agrees to be a couple with Burke. So those are our positives, and that brought us all the way up to 15 points total. But it's time to get into the negatives, and there were a few. So first off, we have our character regression. Alex, who's been cocky, who's been sure of himself, in the last episode found out that he had failed a test. Now in this episode, it's not only impacted his dating life with Izzy, but it has also impacted his ability to do his job, as this time Alex is the one who chokes. Initially, Burke wants Alex to perform the surgery as he has more confidence in his abilities. However, Alex, in his confidence crisis, declines to take the tools and implements from Burke and instead does the intubation like air pumping manually and holds the flashlight while George is the one who does the surgery. This obviously is a drastic step back for the character who's been confident up until now and capable up until now, and that is worth -1 point. We then have -2 points for a weak subplot concept, and this is the one with Christina. Now, personally, I would say I am a bit of a prude. I don't enjoy adult content, even minor adult content. I am the person who looks away from the screen because I just think that that's an invasion of the privacy of the people on screen. Like I'm very much not in that realm. So this obviously was uncomfortable to watch, and not so much the concept itself in that like obviously, if you're allergic to a pain medication and this is something that can help you, that I don't have a problem with. That's specific circumstances. He's okay with it. His wife is okay with it. They're happy together with this being the prescription, and that does seem to be their only option based on the discussions in the show. So I don't have a problem necessarily with that. It's that when the power goes out, the secondhand embarrassment, and I am a big sufferer of secondhand embarrassment, that I felt when Christina decided to become kind of like an audiobook narrator for the adult content. Um, oh my God, that was so embarrassing. I will admit, I fast forwarded. I was like, I cannot deal with this as a person. And I scrolled just a little bit ahead because I could not handle it. And if it's something that I can't watch, obviously it's going to be a weak subplot because I couldn't even participate in the subplot. And that is on me to a certain extent because I am such a baby when it comes to those types of things. But at the same time, it's like I'm not alone. There's going to be other people who are uncomfortable about the world of adult content who do not want to participate in it on their TV screens and who would probably have the same things issues that I have, though I do acknowledge that not a lot of people, and especially in today, very few people probably are as sensitive to those types of things. So I felt it was worth the -2 points. And as my judgment and bias do still apply, that's why it's only mostly objective, I decided to give it the -2. We then have another -2 for our supporting relationship regression or breakup. I don't think they're completely broken up yet, but obviously Izzy and Alex, they were starting to get flirty. They were having a good time. They agreed to go on a date together. Alex got the news right beforehand about his failed test. This has impacted their date. She obviously didn't have a great time. She got all dressed up. And they stressed this very heavily in the episode, shaved her legs for him. And then obviously when they come back to the door, she's kind of talking about like how, they didn't have a great time. He then says he had a really great time. She softens up to him and thinks he's going to take things further. She leans in even a little bit to try to get that kiss, and he basically balks and runs away from her. And then, she goes in, she complains to George about how, she shaved her legs and he didn't even kiss her. And then even when they were with the patient, George is talking to Alex about how Izzy had expectations. She shaved her legs and you didn't follow through. And even like the cop that they're talking about who's been shot is like, dude, you didn't even follow through and she shaved her legs. Like, I did not know about this whole shaving legs thing. I just thought that's something people did every day or wax or whatever, but like didn't think it was a big deal, but apparently very much so in this series, in the universe that ends up in. And even by the end of the episode, we get no progression on them, so they're stuck in that regression status. That's why they lose the 2 points. And then we, of course, have our main relationship regression or breakup, which is also a -3 points. And obviously, we have Meredith at the start of the episode saying, I'm out. Don't want anything to do with you. You didn't sign the papers. I'm done. Doesn't take her very long, but by the end of the episode, she has completely changed her mind and she's 180'd and she's saying, you know what? No, I am actually so in love with you to the point that I actually hate you because my feelings are just so big and you're not reciprocating them. And then she basically tells him, you know, well, the line, pick me, choose me, love me. And if he does so, meet her at Joe's bar with the signed papers. Like if he decides to sign those papers, she'll be at the bar tonight. Come find her. But then we see her and the other interns at the bar. She's several peanut shells deep and several drinks in, and no Derek. And then we, of course, see Derek sitting in the waiting room, not making any moves to go to the bar, waiting for Addison, and Addison arrives asking him, are you going to sign the papers? Again, we were left on a cliffhanger, so we never really get the final answer. And I mean, obviously, as rewatchers, we know the future that what the actual final answer will be eventually. But as there was no reprogressing in this episode, it still counts as the breakup/regression. So that brings us overall for this episode to a total of 7 out of 10. Which then makes our season 2 rankings so far on our mostly objective ranking in first place. Make me lose control. Deny, deny, deny. Enough is enough. This episode comes in fourth with Bring the Pain, and then fifth is Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head. Now, as to my personal feelings about this episode, I did like the episode. I thought it was, I like the drama of the show more than the medical side of things. I didn't like the one subplot, but I kind of skipped past it, so it didn't really negative impact me that much. Thank goodness we have streaming services now, and I didn't have to have it on a TV I couldn't fast forward on. So it didn't really impact me that much because I fast forwarded. Um, But I was saying when I was doing the summary that we were going to talk later about that broken-hearted girl, lady, woman, person. She supposedly was in love with her next door neighbor for 27 years, and he supposedly loved her back. And for the 7 years since he died, 20 years apparently after she'd fallen in love with him, or no, anyways, she's been, having these heart attacks. She's got a literal broken heart. Oh my gosh, so romantic, not. But here's the thing, she's married to somebody else, and I don't know if we can assume if he was married to somebody else, but if you've been in love with somebody to the point where you deem yourselves to be soul mates, well, why did you marry other people? Like 27 years is a very long time to be supposedly in love and soulmates. Like it's so long. How did you not end up marrying each other? And I mean, the lady, she doesn't look super young, but she doesn't look super old either. So if it's 27 years, I don't know if the 27 includes the 7 years since he died, or if it was 27 years, then he died, and now there's been an additional 7 where he's been dead and her heart's been broken. It doesn't really make that clear. But either way, 27 years, very long time to be in love with somebody and do absolutely nothing about it. So I don't know, that one just didn't really seem realistic to me because I'm like, hello, you really, really don't make sense. And I mean, we also kind of paralleling that Ellis and Richard, where Ellis was still kind of stuck in her past, and she talks about how similar to even Meredith, like we're paralleling everything right now, but it was similar to Meredith that Ellis had given an ultimatum to Richard to leave Adele and meet her at the carousel, and then he didn't come because he couldn't bring himself to leave Adele, and that had happened. Obviously, we have Meredith giving the ultimatum to meet her at the bar after he signs the divorce papers, and then he doesn't. And so maybe because of those two, we can assume, since we're all paralleling here, that maybe Ted didn't feel the same way towards her as she assumed, and maybe wasn't soulmates with her, but with his wife, and decided not to leave his wife. And then obviously he died, so why would she leave her husband then if he's already dead? But that makes it a little bit less of a romantic situation. And she definitely was with her husband at the time because it's her husband who brings up the Ted story about how he was doing yard work and they watched him get an aneurysm, die, and have the funeral people come in and take him away. And that's the only thing he can think of that would have happened on that date 7 years ago. So clearly she was with her own husband. Like I said, we can assume maybe Ted had a wife. I assume if he didn't have a wife, they would have been together because apparently they were soulmates for 27 years. I just think that storyline falls flat. There's the Christina one that fell flat. There was relationship drama, but most of that, apart from like Christina and Burke deciding to be a couple right at the end, was negative couple drama. And while the elevator was cool, Georgia is my least favorite. So, I mean, I was like, cool concept. Not my favorite though. I did like the shaman storyline and how they went above and beyond to like helicopter in the shaman, but I do wonder whose dime was that on? Like, I mean, to be fair, Derek mentions that the dad is wearing a $3,000 suit, so apparently they do potentially come from money. He's also smoking cigars, so I mean, like, they are implying great wealth. But it is the hospital, and it is the hospital's helicopter, so I would assume the dad had to pay for that, which I'm sure he was happy to do because who wouldn't want their daughter to be able to walk? And if the hospital's like, yeah, we'll let you in, we'll let you do this ritual, we'll even give you this, it's just going to be a hefty bill. He probably would have gone ahead with it anyways, but I do wonder, in reality, like outside of a drama show, if such extraordinary measures would actually ever occur, or whether it was just for the drama and to get the happy ending in the episode. But I don't really have an answer to that because I'm not in the medical field, so we will always be left wondering on that. So overall, I liked the episode. I thought it was a good episode. It just had some flaws as compared to the other episodes so far, which is why it is scored a little further down. And ultimately, I decided to score it as a 4 out of 10. And that brings the season 2 ranking so far on the personal ranking to, in first place, Make Me Lose Control, Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head, Deny, 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 Enough is Enough, and then in last place, Bring the Pain is coming in 5th. And so we come to our video's final segment, which is our series ranking so far. And on our mostly objective ranking, we had season 1 coming in at 77.78%. And so far for season 2, we have accumulated 37 out of 270 points. And then on our personal ranking side, season 1 came in at 66.67%. And for season 2 so far, we are also at 37 points out of a highest possible score of 270. With that, we've now rewatched and ranked Grey's Anatomy Season 2, Episode 5, Bring the Pain. Like and subscribe if you'd like to, and I'll see you in the next episode.